It's the 4-job Fiesta. I did a meteor run this year, which means that I can get literally any job from any crystal, hence why I'm freelancers here. I won't be getting actual jobs for a while, not until after Garula, so unless you want to watch a bunch of freelancers attack bosses, you can skip to there. I'll still have commentary up to that point though. Because I'm playing Project Demi on the SNES version, unfortunately there'll be no music replacements either, so I hope you like the boss theme in this game. At least it'll occasionally be interrupted by Battle on the Big Bridge or Exdeath's theme or something like that. And I also just say that it was very nice to be able to level up for once. I haven't played this game since finishing the level 1 run, and playing the game just like quote-unquote normally was quite nice, being able to actually get physically stronger. It doesn't matter what the run is, Siren is always the same fight. It's unfortunate that she started off with haste, but I'm a little powerful right now, so I don't really think her extra turns are going to affect me that much. But no matter what your party composition is, Siren is always the same for me. I mean, if I had only magic users, it might be slightly more difficult, but that would just mean she dies even faster when undead. Always just physical attacks when alive, potions when undead, and this time I actually remembered to buy a bunch of potions instead of just dealing with the 5 to 10 that I pick up throughout the world. I'll start off by saying this for the Magissa fight. I think I over-leveled a little bit accidentally. I know I just said that I was happy to be able to level up, but I think I went a little overboard here. We got some new weapons from Castle Tycoon. This fight is probably the only time you'll see a bell attack in your life. We also have the whip from Magissa, which has indicated to me that Garula is actually vulnerable to paralyze, which I didn't know. Having the katana for Bartz is very nice, because, you know, he has the highest strength, and the occasional crit is nice, even if I can only use it for this one boss fight before I get my actual jobs next. And the healing staff helps too, because Garula, being a counter-based boss, can really fuck you up if you don't have good armor or good defense or anything. Berserker Risk strikes! Although I'm pretty sure I actually did check the Berserker Risk box, which, if you don't know, means that you have an extra, like, 25 to 50% chance to get a Berserker, and also you can get Berserker normally, meaning you could potentially have 2 forced Berserkers. That didn't happen to me, thankfully, but my other job was Black Mage, which balances it out by a lot. This is going to be a running theme of the Black Mage just kind of steamrolling bosses. The Ice Rod kind of just melts this guy. I did need to rely on the Berserker to hit the hand form, because the hand is immune to magic for some reason. I've never really understood that, but that does turn it into at least a little bit more of a strategy boss than just mindlessly throwing ice attacks at it. Which is weird that a boss like that is this early, because many bosses later on can just be nuked by the Black Mage with no downside. I don't have Blue Mage, so I obviously can't get Death Claw, so I opt instead to just nuke the Sergeant in the back before he can turn into Death Claw, and then once the Sergeant is gone, all the wolves just run away. So it's questionable whether I should even include this fight at all, but for the sake of consistency, I might as well. Ifrit. This is exactly what I was talking about with the Liquid Flame fight. You can just recklessly throw Ice 2s at him with the Frost Rod equipped, and he just dies. I'm still only with Black Mage and Berserker because, as you might expect, my next few jobs are not part of this crystal, so I won't actually have another job until I get the Earth Crystal. I didn't know you could get back attacked by a Byblos. Or Byblos? I still don't know. But it doesn't really matter, because again, you can just be nuked by Flame Rod boosted Fire 2s and just killed in a matter of minutes. I'm not really too concerned about any party members that get KO'd. If I really need a grind, Project Demi has a ×2 or ×4 rewards multiplier. Though I actually am under-leveled for every single boss fight up until Neo Exdeath, which I had to grind about 10 levels for. But we'll get to that when we get to it. It is actually optimal to keep the Berserker dead for fights like these, counterattack based bosses that require actual paying attention on what you're supposed to hit. If the Berserker just hits random holes, you'll get hit with gravity. It doesn't matter how strong you are, gravity's gonna hit you for half to 3/4 of your health no matter what. I also just say, I hate fighting this guy, not because he's difficult, but because it takes forever. Sandworm and all the holes take so many empty turns that the ATB gauge takes friggin' forever to fill. Cray Claw is still not a real boss. I don't even really think I have to say anything at this point. Adamantoise, another boss with an elemental weakness. I already said this, but seriously, Black Mage is incredible for damage dealing. Ramuh is funny because he does not have a heavy flag, and I have access to the death scythes. Soul Cannon continues the tradition of spam magic to win. It's interesting how much World 1 just kind of rolls over to the Black Mage. Here's a role reversal for you. You wouldn't expect 3 Berserkers and 1 Black Mage to be optimal, and in basically every other scenario that isn't this specific 4-job Fiesta run, you'd be right. But seeing as the final form of Archeoaevis is immune to literally all of the Black Mage's magic at this point, risking 3 Berserkers is probably optimal. Plus I got a bit lucky with him not constantly spamming his most powerful moves like he usually does. Purobolos, another fight that is more difficult with an alive berserker, made even more annoying by the fact that Galoof is gone, so I have to do this with one less party member. Luckily all these guys are vulnerable to sleep, so I won't get exploded for 1500 damage, and everyone's magic stat is good enough that I managed to not kill 5 of the 6 of them, which is something that happens to me surprisingly often. I'm not sure how often that happens to anybody else, but I'm really sick of fighting these guys in a non-gill toss scenario, and I'll kill 4 or 5 of them and leave one alive, and then you kill the last one and it just arises everybody, and you have to keep doing it until they run out of MP. It's very annoying. Titan is basically just a damage race. I mean, this party in general is very damage-centric now that we have the Knight. It's a very straightforward party, basically no gimmicks, just damage. It's a damage race because I can survive one Earthshaker, or at least one of us can, but we cannot survive 2 Earthshakers. And one of them is guaranteed when he dies. Chimera Brain is theoretically the most difficult meteor boss, but luckily it doesn't have a heavy flag, so the Doom Scythe comes in once again. Get wrecked. Gilgamesh 2 is, as always, the most difficult Gilgamesh fight to me. For the Knight, I actually meant to have on the Mage Masher so that I could prevent his buffs going into Phase 2, but I had on the main Gosh, or the Defender Knife, or whatever it's called instead. That actually ended up being optimal because Galoof protected a low-health ally twice with it, and then I switched to Mage Masher and instantly silence him right before he goes into Phase 2. I think this is either the first try or the second try too, so that was very lucky on my part. But other than that, it's just a standard damage race, same as all the other bosses have been. Alright, let's just skip through these guys real quick, because we already know that these guys aren't real. The Dragon Pod, or Hiryu plant, is still not heavy, so, you know, Doom Scythe. And then in the meantime, Ferris just plinks away with full party magic, because the flowers only have like 100 or 200 health. But it's always been weird to me, because those flowers are very weak, but without a rod boosting the damage, a Fire 2, Ice 2, or Thunder 2 spell will do 0 damage to any of them. It does take surprisingly long for the instant death to proc, but I'm pretty sure when it finally does activate, it was probably almost dead anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. Getting hit with Darkness Plant doesn't help too. It's another Gilgamesh fight. Boosted Bio is very powerful. It doesn't last very long because you get Bio and all the Aga spells fairly close to each other, so Bio doesn't really have a chance to shine. And I'm not sure how many enemies in this game are weak to poison. The sap probably helps though. I remember someone in the level 1 run, I believe, either the level 1 run or the Jobs video, where he said that you can use Quick, cast Bio on an enemy, and then just wait until an enemy dies from sap. Also, apparently Gilgamesh is vulnerable to instant death. I don't even know if he's vulnerable to it in the big bridge fight. This fight is a lot easier than I thought it was. I'm so glad that there's many ways to inflict sleep between Black Mage, Spellblade, and literally any class that can equip a sword. We have the Aga spells now, which is nice, but we don't really need them. Now that I know these guys aren't heavy, my plan is just to fish for instant kills with the death sights, and keep us cured with Ferris in the meantime. The fight goes on for like 5 minutes because I was getting very unlucky with the instant death activations, but not a big deal. Catoblepas is an annoying damage race because he casts Break on a counter hit, so I basically have 4 attacks to kill him, but now that we have the Aga magic, he goes down very quickly. I know that Carbuncle goes through different phases depending on how low his health is, where he starts with pretty weak magic with the level 1 and level 2 magics, and then eventually goes to Aga and the instant death magic. He apparently has Death, X-Zone, and Break, which is a little overkill. I know that he is vulnerable to instant death, or at least he's not heavy during his healing phase, but I didn't feel like timing that, so I was basically just trying to win a damage race, reflecting spells off of our party members with the wall rings we got from the barrier tower. This fight shows that the Knight was a very good supportive class in this run because equipped shields was very useful for the Black Mages. Black magic by itself is insanely overpowered, so they don't really need a secondary ability, but equipped shields is useful for everybody. Shield is just an incredibly useful tool to have for blocking physicals or for absorbing elements like fire and ice, or the Aegis shield, which just lets you block magic sometimes. I'm bringing this up because Gilgamesh's only real way to damage me is with physicals, so everybody having a really good shield is nullifying his only attack plan, basically. Once Gilgamesh starts talking, it's basically just a guaranteed trip to the end of the fight, so I just skip past it. I have two characters with Reflect Rings, purely for the chance of him using Flare or Holy or his August spells on me to bounce him back, but it actually ended up being a lot more useful than I thought it would, because Exdeath is a boss that uses Dispel on you if it detects you have buffs up, but he uses it even if that buff literally can't be removed, like from the Hermes Sandals or the Reflect Ring. So Exdeath spends a lot of time and a lot of empty turns just wasted on Dispel that doesn't do anything. As a call forward, the only way I can even put buffs on myself is with the Defender Sword that I get from Fork Tower. So I literally have no manual buffs I can do myself. I managed to beat World 2 at the low level of 21. I'm pretty sure that's low. I've been skipping or running away from almost every single encounter up to this point, so my level is reflected in my incredibly low HP stat. At least that means that a high potion is basically an elixir at this point. Other than that, I don't really have anything to say. As I've mentioned numerous times, this party is big damage and literally nothing else. All of the strategy comes into what I have equipped before the fight. So we have equipped shields for everybody to dodge his super high damage physicals. We got the Reflect Rings for Dispel, and also so that, you know, its intended purpose of reflecting spells. And we've got the gold hairpin now from the Barrier Tower, so I won't need ethers or elixirs. Antlion is just a thing. You just hit it, and eventually it dies. It's very annoying that this non-entity boss has an attack that halves your level, which is just always bad. just makes the fight take slightly longer. I basically can't lose because I have 2 physical attackers with shields, but that doesn't stop him from making the fight take forever. The Gargoyles are the same as ever. I have the Knight hit the one that the Berserker does not hit, which is surprisingly annoying because, you know, axes have terrible accuracy. And I haven't been showing the regular encounters, but Bartz's accuracy with swords hasn't been that great either. Melusine or Marigine, she starts off in fire weak form, so I just try to put her to sleep so she can't barrier change, and then spam the hell out of fire 3s. We need the Berserker dead so she won't wake her up from sleep. Bartz probably should have had black magic, but I think he's been a Knight or a Berserker for 90% of the run up to this point, so there's no way he would have had level 5 black magic. It's fine though, the fight is free once she's put to sleep. No matter what your party is, Wendigo is always annoying. I still want to know if there's a way to tell which one is the real one. I assume there isn't, but this fight reminds me of the Sandworm in that it takes forever. The Wendigo and its clones spend most of their turns just doing nothing, so the ATB bar takes forever to fill up. Not a fan. Now that we have the Defender Sword, we can cast Protect, plus it also counts as a shield. And since this guy only has physicals, with the shield and protect and all of our dodge chance, this guy really isn't a big deal. Any damage he does get through can be easily healed off with high potions or the like. And Omniscient is just completely neutered with a Reflect Ring. I said this in the level 1 run, but it really is weird that a boss this late into the game is neutered by such a simple strategy. Bosses before this guy have strategies where, for example, they'll bounce beneficial spells off of you onto themselves. So the fact that this guy just has no AI for that has always been strange. These three suck. Get him out of here. Surprise, our fourth job is Mime. The fight isn't necessarily free with a coral ring, but it definitely makes it a lot easier because it usually counters Tidal Wave with magic. So as long as you have a black mage with a decent HP stat for his other moves and a coral ring, you basically have a very low chance of actually losing. The Meteor run description does say that it can give you Freelancer and Mime, but I really didn't expect to get Berserker and Mime in the same run, up there with the best along with Freelancer. Unfortunately, because my jobs are so basic, the Mime can't really benefit from anything aside from maybe Black Magic and 2 MP plus 30%. You actually can equip it twice and it does work, at least in the SNES version. You get a ton of MP, but it's a little impractical. With the gold hairpin, you already have more than enough MP you could ever use. My strategy is Black Magic and MP plus 30%, and then the slot alternates between fight and item, depending on what's needed more. Sometimes I have the Mime physically attacking or using the healing staff. Sometimes I want another item user to heal or revive, or use the magic lamp or something. Leviathan gave us the final Reflect Ring for a full set, so I slapped that on everybody so we are immune to Mega Flares. In one of the attempts of this boss, I was experimenting with magic, and I did determine that Flare does definitively do less than a rod-boosted Aga spell, which is very unfortunate. I'm not really sure what the use case for the Flare spell is. Flare Spellblade is amazing because it just makes you super strong, but I assume the only real use case for it is an enemy that is immune to or absorbs every single element. Or every main element anyway, like the Crystal Dragons in the Rift. But that is a very rare scenario. I don't think there's any boss like that in this game, especially considering the fact that you get it partway into World 3, so you couldn't even use it against the final form of Archeoaevis, for example, unless there's some crazy out-of-order glitches I'm not aware of, like playing Super Metroid Reverse Boss Order. As for the Protect Ring, kind of like Exdeath, the Reflect Ring is an AI breaker. It is at least working as intended. I mentioned during Omniscient that there are bosses that use Reflect to their benefit, but in this case, she's just kind of reflecting useless crap while I nuke her. So I'm okay with her casting Reflect or Asuna or Cure or whatever. As long as she's not attacking me, that's all I care about. Also, we have the Chicken Knife now. I actually rarely end up using it because Chicken Knife is really only super useful if you have something like Aim or Rapid Fire where you can't try to flee and fail. So unfortunately it doesn't get a lot of use in this run, but I've also been running away so much that the Brave Blade would be completely useless. If only it was the Pixel Remaster version where I could fight stuff to make it stronger, but oh well. A panda is literally the exact same as when we fought him in the library. I honestly have forgotten what the library version's name is, but it's the same fight. Since I don't have Float, this is the first time I've ever had to not cheese this guy, but as always, we're a walking death machine party, so it really isn't that big of a deal that we can't cheese him if we can just kill him in a handful of turns with all of our attacks anyway. I will admit that Berserker's finally becoming an actual threat with the Rune Axe. Guaranteed crits with all that MP. And because we have black magic, we can stick that on the Berserker 1, for more MP for the Rune Axe, and 2, the Rune Axe makes the Berserker's attacks take the magic stat into account. And the Black Mage has a pretty good magic stat, so he's actually doing really good damage by the end of the game. The only notable thing that happens in this game is that I get level 2 Olded, and Old is probably the most annoying status in the game. It's great when an enemy is vulnerable to it, though. Aside from this dude's full party Toad spell at the beginning of the fight, I don't really think he does anything. If you leave him alive for too long, he eventually casts a Holy that does like 7,000 damage or something insane, but, well, I won't repeat myself about the damage. It speaks for itself at this point. Twintani is kind of funny when you have a full set of Reflect Rings. Most of his attacks are reflectable, and if he reflects a move, like he did at the beginning of this fight with Atomic Ray, he'll counter his own attack with Mega Flare, meaning that he just hits himself again. He counters magic with Mega Flare, which I want more of. Usually this guy is way more counter-happy. And he counters physicals with, I think, Tidal Wave. So it was between attacking him with all physicals and having a full set of Coral Rings, or attacking him with all magic and having 4 Reflect Rings. This probably would have been more optimal if I had killed off the Berserker, but I really wasn't too concerned about it. It's probably me just getting greedy or overconfident, but the fight didn't take too many attempts. The only notable thing about the final Gilgamesh encounter is that I steal the Genji shield, which is the only piece of the Genji set I care about. 50% block chance. I hate Necrophobes so much. He's always one of the most difficult fights in the game for me, no matter what my party is, but I think I mostly hate how long Flare and Holy's animations are. I fought this guy so many times at this point that I actually was just fast-forwarding through the animations so that I wouldn't be here for hours at a time attempting them. I was hoping that the Aegis shields would help protect against the Holies and Flares. I don't think in any of my attempts they ever actually worked. I don't know if reflected spells can't be blocked, or if I was just insanely unlucky. It also didn't help that my levels were in the later 20s or very early 30s, so my HP stat was god-awful. Most of my party could not survive a Flare or Holy because it would do quadruple digit damage. I think one of the more annoying parts of this fight was that I really had to rely on the Berserker to actually hit the correct targets. Because Necrophobe is right there, the Berserker feels like he has a 75% chance of just hitting him rather than an enemy that I actually want him to hit. But that's just the Berserker for you. That's why it's called Berserker Risk. The first form of Exdeath, I really have nothing much to say. I set up full protects, but I don't really think it ends up mattering. It's the only buff I can do, unless I want to do some Wonder Rod stuff and get single target shell or something, and I'm not going to bother to do that. Things don't really start happening until the Neo Exdeath fight. Because the Berserker will just attack as it does, I have to be really careful not to get into the last part of this first phase, because when this part of Exdeath gets below 10,000 health, he just spams Meteor constantly until you're dead. So once I get all the protects up and everyone's fully healed, I just have to go all in on attacking. Our HP stats are also monstrously high, at least compared to how they've been for the run up to this point, because I had to grind to the low 40s in order to stand any kind of a chance. Basically any attack, if it went through from Neo Exdeath, would instant kill me. Between Vacuum Wave or Meteor, especially Almagest, but I'll get to that when we get to it. I hate Almagest so much. The part that casts Algamest, Algamest? I think I keep saying it wrong. The lower right section is vulnerable to Petrify, but it also has an 80% magic evasion stat. So while it's guaranteed with Break Spellblade, not so much with Break the Spell. I went through so many attempts that just ended because I couldn't petrify it. And that is basically the only way I could finish this fight, because every section has 50,000 health, except for the top right, which has 55,000, I think. And even though my party is nothing but damage, it's still not enough to deal 50,000 damage before the thing casts Almagest. So it was actually optimal to just spam it and just hope. Then once Kara gets through the magic lamp with Zantetsuken, that just leads the top two sections. I don't think the top right section does anything except for physical attacks like the Vacuum Wave. The back left part casts Grand Cross, which is very flashy, literally, but it just does random status effects. And at least this time, the statuses that it kept inflicting were not debilitating at all, like casting Blind on the magic people, or casting Poison, which I don't care about. The main thing is just that I had to hope that the Berserker didn't single target one of those two sections too much, because if you leave one section alive for too long, it just starts spamming every single deadly move that Neo Exdeath has, and it attacks twice in one turn. I already lost at least 2 or 3 of these boss fights because of that exact thing happening, where I left one part alive with too much health and it just Almagested me and just killed me instantly. But that really is the biggest issue with this fight, is the bottom right section. So I'm very thankful to the 1990s developers for making the most annoying part vulnerable to an instant death status. And that's my 4-job Fiesta. It only took me like 3 or 4 days because Project Demi skipping all the cutscenes and me running away from 95% of battles. This run was fun though, even though it was very, very simple. My final thoughts here, even though it was kind of fun to just constantly be throwing around 3,000 to 4,000 damage hits, it was a little stale by the end. Black Mage was carrying the party for literally the whole game with its no-nonsense high damage stuff with the rod boosting. Really nothing negative to say about it at all, but that's always been the case. Finally, it was really weird that Knight, of all classes, ended up being my support character, both in and out of battle, because as I mentioned, I gave classes equipped shields for great defensive support, plus the defender for protect, even though I don't really think that ended up mattering a whole lot. Better to have it than to not, though. I've got one more Final Fantasy V video idea before I'm finally ready to say I'm done with this game for a while, so look forward to that.